Hi, and welcome to my reflective commentary on this semester and all that I have learned. So I'm just going to reflect on what I learned about in writing and just writing instruction. The first big thing that I learned is that it is super important for students to write often and for a variety of purposes. And that kind of goes into those 4 recommendations that we researched and we learned about at the very beginning of the semester. And I thought those were so fabulous, and it made me reflect on myself and how I incorporate writing into my day. And so I'll kind of talk about that a little more as I go through each of the recommendations, because I did have aha moments for all of them. And so I just want to reflect on those with you all. So the first one was provide daily time for students to write. And for me, I feel like I did an okay job with this, but being in a first grade classroom, I know myself, I get very focused in on the phonics portion of our day, and sometimes things get pushed to the back burner, and I kind of had to refocus and say, okay, like I've got to provide some time for them to just write. But I think that this comes with time, that daily time of being able to write. I think it's going to look different at the beginning of the year, obviously, than it does at the end, because you're going to be providing a lot of support for your students, and you're teaching them like what's the expectation when you write. And so I think that can be scary sometimes for teachers to be like, oh, I have to let them write, but their writing's not good. But we have to teach them how to write effectively and all of those things. So I am excited to incorporate that into my schedule next year. I will definitely be providing some time for my students to write each and every day. But then that goes into teaching students to write for a variety of purposes. And I think this is so incredible. And I've had many ideas just kind of reflecting on that recommendation. I'm even thinking like for a variety of purposes, in my grade level, I teach first grade. Students are still trying to learn how to regulate emotions and that social emotional aspect of just learning in school. And I think it would be so cool for them to just be able to journal and write their thoughts and feelings in a journal. That's another way for them to just write, but also writing for, when we're learning information in science or social studies, all of those things. So it opened my eyes to writing can happen at any point in our day, and it can help in so many areas. The next one was teach students to become fluent with handwriting, spelling, sentence construction, typing, and word processing. And this one was a big one for me. I even put a star by it because in first grade, I guess my expectation was, this is my first year I'm learning, but my expectation was that they were going to come in and they were going to have their letter formation and all of the things. Their handwriting was going to be pretty decent, and I was just going to have to build on from there. But I came to the realization that since I didn't drill handwriting as much as I should at the beginning of the year, it kind of started to dwindle, and it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Not that it was terrible, but it was not as good as I had expected it to be or wanted it to be. And then that sentence construction, I know me and my team personally, I thought it was really interesting to read about this, because me and my team personally had reflected at the end of the year, and that was one area where we're like, we have got to target a good sentence. Like, what does a sentence have? Just a simple sentence. And so that was it just stuck out to me. I was like, wow, I just talked about that with my team, and here it is in my learning in college. So how cool is that? And then the last one was create an engaged community of writers, and I had the thought of having parents come in, and they could read their writing to their parents, or they could read their writing to other classes in the school, just engaging them and making it fun for them. The next thing that I wrote down was the use of mentor text, and I didn't realize how rich using mentor text was until I got to experiment with that in my case study. And wow, it was just powerful. It maps out for students what a good narrative piece has, and just pointing out those pieces that are in there helps the student, understand what you're trying to tell them to put in their own stories. So the use of mentor text is something that I reflected on myself, and I think is a fabulous thing that I should add into my own personal teaching philosophies in classroom. Rubrics was another thing that I documented, was just something that is very crucial. It gives me a clear directive on what I'm expecting from my students, and it also gives my students a directive on what they are expected to do. The next one I said was modeling. And I always knew how important modeling is in the early grades. I mean, and for those early and emergent writers, it's just super important. But I think I could do a better job of modeling writing specifically for my students. And this semester and just doing some more research has helped me to be better prepared for that. I put a star by this one. I loved the think alouds, and I love the think alouds in a sense of we are thinking before we write, and the teacher is thinking before they write. So, like, I'm just gonna do an example. Like, for example, maybe I want to write a narrative piece on a dog. So I'm gonna write dog in the middle of a web diagram, and off my web diagram, I'm just gonna write some things about my dog. My dog is brown. My dog likes to run. My dog is fluffy. My dog can talk. Just things like that. Like you're just experimenting. Oh, I think my dog might do this. And then you have this clear picture of what you want in your story, and then you continue to build on from there. But I just wanted to kind of give a visual of like what I was thinking, and how I thought that was so awesome. And I'm definitely going to use this because it's teaching them to think through that pre-writing stage. The thing I gathered from the early emergent writing stage was just, I thought it was so cool when we watched that teacher and she was modeling for them how to do that and using pictures before they wrote the story. I love that. And then the last thing I wrote was student interest and being sure that we are pulling their interest into the writing that we are doing, and they will be more engaged and motivated to write. So yeah, that's pretty much a quick summary of all that I learned. I learned so much more than that, but I had so much fun this semester, and look forward to using some of these things in my classroom.